Welcome to Heat Check. So many Aussies doing good things in the world of basketball, and this is your look at all that is happening for those that are plying their trade right around the globe. My name's Joel Peterson, alongside the man who's got more screens than NASA Mission Control. There are bullfrogs, there are dolphins, there are giraffes that sleep more than this man, Michael Houben. Mick, what have you been watching?
I've been watching a bit of everything, a few more Bulls games than usual. I'm a Bulls fan, and Josh Giddey's getting me to tune in a little bit more. And of course, college, lots of big games going on.
Absolutely. We'll start with the Bulls because what a story this has been over the last little while. Josh Giddey and that game winner that he had against the Los Angeles Lakers. Of all teams, the situation, they score 9 points in the last 10 seconds, and we get to see that absolute bomb from Josh Giddey. What a moment that was.
Yeah, if you haven't seen the full couple of minutes to end that game, you've got to go watch it. It wasn't just this one shot, but what a moment. It felt so big for Josh. Held that follow through like he knew it was going in as well. And what a moment to cap off a sensational run of play he's had. And
I don't know if you know who that guy is. Right in the face of one LeBron James. So that is, that's a career-defining highlight potentially for Josh Giddey. And this is a guy that's been playing some really good basketball, of course, traded to the Chicago Bulls. This is a team that specialises in mediocrity in the last few years, and he's really lit a fire under them recently. I think at that stage they won something like 8 of their past 10. They've lost a couple since then, but he's doing some really good things for them.
Yeah, they're on a real roll right now, and Josh Giddey is playing the best basketball of his career. He's shooting the three at a really high rate, but he's also getting to the rim at a much higher rate. He's playing aggressive basketball, and I think that's the more sustainable improvement for him.
You wrote a piece on basketball.com.au about Josh Giddey and what he's doing. Diving into some of those numbers, what jumped out to you?
Yeah, obviously the three-point shooting is massive. That's something we always watch with Josh. We want him to shoot a high clip. It's something he's working on, but it's not the only thing. He is getting to the rim more. There's more fast break buckets, and that's the thing with Josh, using his size, his positional size at the point guard position to overpower these guys at the rim and get to the free throw line as well.
Played some really good defense on Luka Doncic, frustrated the absolute living bejesus out of him in this particular game. And of course, he is in a contract year. There is potentially a big payday coming. I'm thinking the Bulls are probably regretting giving Patrick Williams $90 million right about now, but hopefully Josh can cash in.
Yeah, hopefully Josh can get an even bigger deal than P will, and hopefully play better once he gets it as well. Josh is in a really good place right now, and how fortunate for him to be in a spot to showcase himself leading up into this second contract.
Yeah, 46.5 feet of pure gold on NBA.com. It was 4.5 stars on the Horry scale, which is a time-honoured measure for game-winning buzzer beaters. So that is pretty impressive from our man Josh Giddey. The Aussies, of course, have been over in 3x3 as well at the Asia Cup, and it was gold, gold, gold for Australia. The men and the women getting it done. Shout out to Adam Ford and Damon Lowry, who guided these two teams through everything. Dylan Stith was great for the men. And then, of course, Anneli Maley, our very own, was terrific for the women.
Yeah, it was pretty smooth sailing for both teams. The women didn't drop a game. That was a three-peat for them. It was back-to-back for the boys. A very Cairns Taipan flavour as well with Jonah Antonio and Alex Higgins-Titcher as well.
Yeah, Alex Higgins-Titcher did some great things in the NBL season and carrying that form on. You see Ali Wilson there, of course. She was the MVP for the women's team in their event. She'll be in action in the NBL 1 West this weekend, so very exciting to have her back on the floor. We know what she can do, and the strong finish from Anneli Maley. So the bucket hat of Damon Lowry will be displayed loud and proud this week, that is for sure, and some great stuff from our 3x3 teams. Some big news coming through in the last couple of days as well, with Jack White not returning to Melbourne United. He signed overseas for Bayern Munich, so one of the biggest clubs in Europe. He had a bit of an up and down, especially the end to his NBL season. What do you make of this move?
Yeah, it all happened very quickly. We saw him earlier in the week decline his player option with Melbourne United, perhaps somewhat surprising, and the words were that he was looking to explore his international market. And very quickly, Bayern Munich came calling. He signed this deal. Now, he's not going to be able to play in EuroLeague play. He missed that deadline, but there's about a month and a half left of German play left, and it feels like a bit of an audition, I think, for not just Bayern Munich, but also teams all around Europe.
And teams maybe elsewhere as well, potentially, NBA opportunities that would be on his horizon still, because we know what he can do there, and he's still got plenty of time on his side. He's not a player who is done with by any means.
Yeah, we know what Jack White is like at his best. He obviously has that NBA opportunity and that championship pedigree behind him. If he can get one more year in the league, I think that'll be massive for him.
So the other big story during the week has been the Chinese Basketball Association. We touched on it last week with Keandre Cook, Keanu Pinder, and Casey Prather, who had some registration issues. Now, I rather flippantly compared this to domestic basketball and filling in. Unfortunately, much like when I tried to do that and they found out that I wasn't registered, they said, don't come back. And this has happened to those three in China, so they've had their contracts cancelled. You know, this is a cutthroat competition, particularly with the import rules in the CBA. It can be really hard to make things stick for a long term there.
Yeah, they come in really quickly. They also leave really quickly as well. It is really cutthroat, and you have to come in and make a difference straight away. These guys were averaging 9 points, 12 points a game in Cook's case. But at the end of the day, you need to come in and dominate. So even though it is a weaker league on the whole, the expectation for imports makes it really tough for them.
So that, you know, you think of this in an NBL context or an Australian basketball context, often if we see an import cut this early into, not necessarily their season, because we're a fair way down the road in the Chinese Basketball Association season, but this early into their tenure, it means things haven't worked out. This isn't necessarily the case here. It's not like these guys have gone over there and had horrible campaigns. It's just that, you know, play with the import rules, you need to come in and be performing at like a really, really, really high level.
Yeah, the mentality is totally different. You're almost like a mercenary coming in there. They want you to perform straight away. And if not, your job is on the line. There's a line waiting to take your job as well.
In better news, as far as the Aussies go, or the NBL players go in China recently, Tyler Harvey has headed over there playing for Shanghai. He made an absolutely stunning debut to his tenure, playing against Montrezl Harrell as well, put up some really good numbers, had a really good second game as well, almost a triple-double in his second game, plus 20 points. He's, you know, assisting the ball and that kind of thing. He's shown some really good signs and just building on his NBL campaign.
Yeah, someone we know is quite hot and cold, but he's come out hot, and this is what you need to do exactly as a Chinese import. You need to be able to come in, let it fly. He's shooting the three at a really high rate, and I think he's secured his spot for the season as a result.
That's his calling card, of course, Tyler Harvey. So that first game for him, 24, 3 and 9. That was when he played Montrezl Harrell, and then his most recent game, 21, 8 and 9. So, you know, the facilitation is there. We probably don't see that much of that from him in the NBL, clearly being asked to do something a little bit different here and showing that he's still up for it.
Yeah, this is kind of like the absence of Trey Cal in a way. It was really great for the Illawarra Hawks. They got to play him off the ball a little bit more. We know Trey Cal played that point guard position, but Tyler's showing his ability to take the ball, facilitate and score at the same time.
And Kortnoy, who's coming off an award-winning season with the Sydney Kings, the best sixth man of the year, is coming off an interesting week and maybe an April Fool's joke that didn't quite go the way that he planned. On the court, though, and away from the April Fools of it all, he's been continuing to put up some really big numbers.
It's so awesome to see Quat continue to play great basketball. We know he had a breakout with the Sydney Kings, but he's continuing it overseas. He averaged over 18 points on the season, but he had 35 earlier this month as well. So playing some great basketball, shooting the three fantastically. And if I'm a Sydney Kings fan, that's the thing that makes me excited, is knowing he's locked away and he's going to be doing some great things for them next season.
Yeah, so the 35 against Guangdong, the 23 that he had most recently was against the Zhejiang Golden Bulls. So not just any old Bulls, not the Josh Giddey Bulls, these are Golden Bulls. So that's a very prestigious kind of bull. But he's playing with a couple of familiar NBL names as well. So with Mango Matiang, with Craig Randall. The team's not going overly well. They've won 2 of their past 22. They play absolutely zero defence whatsoever. But clearly there's the opportunity there for Quat to do what he did in the NBL season, go out, have an impact, and he's doing it.
Yeah, look, he's got the green light, same at the Sydney Kings. And next to Craig Randall, they're putting up a lot of shots and Mango's cleaning up the ones that are missing.
There's a lot of green lights for that particular team with Craig Randall and Kortnoy, but generally it works out for them. So that's where our Aussies are playing overseas at the moment. Of course, one of the big focuses, and you mentioned it right off the top of the show as well, Mick, is still March Madness and still what's happening with our Aussies over in the college scene. And in the men's side of things, we have 4 number 1 seeds for just the second time in NCAA history, and we could have 2 Australians in the championship game if Florida and Duke win. Alex Condon and Tyrese Proctor could be playing for it all.
Yeah, we're down to 2. We lost Anthony Del Orso in Arizona. We lost Mawat Mag and BYU. They got thumped in the Sweet 16. Now, in one sense, it's great. These guys aren't playing each other yet, so they could final. Conversely, they could both get knocked out. We may have no one there as well. So Sunday morning Australian time. Google told me yesterday one of the games starts at 8:09. So set your watch, set it for 8:09. Make sure you're sitting down on the couch. You've got your cup of tea at 8:09 on Sunday morning, and you can see our 2 Aussies potentially get ready to clash in
the NCAA championship game, which would be so significant for Australian basketball. We've seen, the performance Andrew Gay's put on in the NCAA tournament way back when. We've seen big names do really good things, but to have two guys right at the pinnacle of it all, starting for their respective teams as well, would be hugely significant.
It's pretty special. I definitely haven't seen something in my time watching college basketball growing up. You'll have to correct me, or someone can correct me, if we've won a national championship, any Australian player over our time. So very special, and the odds are pretty high that one of them is going to come out with the whole thing.
And of course, there's NBA opportunities for them as well. Now, Tyrese Proctor's a really good story because last year in the Elite Eight, he probably had the worst game just about of his college career. It's a great redemption tale. He has 17 points as Duke advanced to the Final Four, played a really, really big role and continues to get it done.
This was a game of redemption for Tyrese. He went 0 of 9 in this time last year and obviously had a big game, 17 points. This whole Duke team is clicking at such a high level, and when they're all playing this well, they feel like the favourites.
What does he do well? Like, what skills do you see transfer from Tyrese Proctor to maybe the next level?
Yeah, he's a really well-rounded guard in so many respects on both sides of the ball, but I think the thing that he's really shown that he can do at an NBA level is play off the ball a little bit. He shoots the three at a fantastic rate. He can score off the dribble in a pinch, facilitate. Reminds me of a very versatile guard, like a Derek White at Boston Celtics.
Yeah, that's a very good recipe, of course, an Olympian and an NBA champion who's been doing some good things of recent times. Alex Condon, of course, is in action for the Florida Gators. The big man's been starting. He found his way through an ankle complaint. He suffered an ankle complaint in that game against Maryland in the Sweet 16, and then in the Elite 8, he played 27 minutes, had a bit of a return to form, 7-7, so not a massive game, but sort of shook off that nagging injury to return with some really nice form.
Yeah, slightly quieter offensively. I'm going to chalk that up to the ankle which he was playing through. They had a fantastic win in this last game. They were down 9 points with 3 and a bit left. But the Gators' sharpshooting really got them across the line. Alex is doing all the dirty work, and he's going to be primed to have a couple of big games here to finish off his college career.
Yeah, they got Walter Clayton, who's he seems like a real big game hunter as well. He's a lot of fun on that team. So as much as we're going to be watching for Alex Condon, that Florida team's got some real weapons.
Yeah, they're absolutely stacked. And, to compete with a Duke that has 3, maybe 4 NBA players coming next season, they have to have talent all across the board, and Alex Condon is just one of those pieces.
Do we see it? Do we see our two guys playing in a national championship game?
I'm going to hope so. That's what I'm banking on. And
No, we're not hoping so. Are we going to get it?
I need a prediction. Sitting on the fence, Joel, but yes, I do think we're going to get it, and I think the Duke's going to take out the whole thing.
Oh, okay. Yeah. Okay, there'll be I reckon this Duke team's more likeable than we've seen in the past too.
Yeah, they're a totally different team. Every player is so intriguing. You got Carmen Malawach as well, South Sudan. Just a really good team to watch, and they click really well as a team as well.
Absolutely, yeah. And a shout out to Agnes Nyopu as well, Agnes Ebenyopu, I should say, who, of course, from Ocean Grove, TCU, went out in the Elite 8. But primed for big things, and the women's side of thing, we know Georgia Amor went a little bit out earlier in the women's side of things, but that team making it through the TCU Horned Frogs to the Elite 8. So a great season for her, and we look forward to seeing what is next for her as well. A little bit closer to home, things are really heating up in the NZNBL. We thought we'd take a little bit of a closer look at that competition, which we've done in the past too, but it is a growing competition, both in terms of its standard, in terms of its coaching, in terms of the players that are heading over there. It's been a really fertile sort of proving ground for players in the last couple of years. You think of last year, your Ben Henschel's going and playing for Otago. Lockie Ulbrich went over and won just about every award there was. Rob Lowe, who retired, had a really good season for Auckland and then parlays that into a really solid run with Melbourne United. The NZNBL continues to deliver really good things.
Feels like the league of choice to sort of showcase yourself and take that next step. You mentioned guys like Ulbrich, guys like Ben Henschel, even Mojave King a couple of years ago. They like coming out here, getting the green light, having a big role, and we've seen them parlay that into really good NBL seasons as well. And
then we're seeing really good coaches go and get an opportunity here. Guys that maybe can't or haven't got an NBL head coaching job. Your Sam McKinnon's going to Taranaki. We've got Judd Flavel coaching in this league as well. Some really top quality coaching. So players, it's becoming a draw card to go and play for some of these guys.
Yeah, absolutely. A great opportunity for the coaches, but also those players to be able to play under them and hopefully use that to leverage into some NBL opportunities as well.
Speaking of NBL opportunities, one man who got a few of those last season, but he's absolutely going berserk this season, is Carlin Davison. So the high flyer for the New Zealand Breakers, of course, in in the NBL season. We saw what he can do there. He has been absolutely extraordinary so far this season. So his counting stats, playing 35 minutes a game, 25 points, 8.5 rebounds, 5.8 assists, 2.8 steals, shooting 52% from three on 6 attempts a game. Playing with Harry Froling, as we can see here. This is ridiculous from him.
I've loved Carlin for years. He's always intrigued me because he is a phenomenal athlete. I'm talking an NBA level athlete. We're seeing him dunking. He's been doing down windmills in games for seasons now, but that's where the intrigue kind of stopped for me. I thought he was more of an athlete than a well-rounded player. But season by season, we're seeing him develop his game. His finishing's improved. He was a non-shooter a few years ago. He listed off that three-point percentage. He's about to eclipse his three-point total. I think he's played maybe 4 games so far this season compared to all seasons past as well.
Yeah, he's doing some great things. And, you look at his numbers last year, so played sort of 30 minutes on 16, 7 and 3. So those numbers it's a huge development. He only got the 7 minutes a game for New Zealand. We saw him throw a really vicious dunk down against Melbourne United at John Cain Arena in the middle of the season. It was kind of like, oh, hello. People that weren't familiar with him didn't know that he necessarily had that, but that athleticism, potentially if he's in line for that return in New Zealand, could be really, really big.
There's some real upside here, and that athleticism is going to unlock when he gets to play a little bit more, and the shooting obviously develops, the cutting, all of those aspects to leverage that athleticism. We saw him in glimpses. He was probably a defensive stopper at times, in and out of the rotation, but I think he's going to get more of a consistent opportunity next season for the Breakers.
Of course, NBL free agency kicks off this week. One name who'll be part of that is David Aquera after he had the option declined by Perth during the week. Now, he's playing over there in the NZNBL as well for the Franklin Bulls. He's been putting up some really big numbers too and doing some really good stuff. If you go looking for him, you have to look for Wenner Aquera. So the full name, Wenner David Aquera. He uses David, which is the middle part of his name. So if you can't find him on the box score, don't worry. It's him and he's doing really good stuff.
Doing fantastic stuff. Probably the most intriguing guy who had his option declined, obviously on a winning team at Perth, but was edged out by guys like Jesse Wagstaff with that veteran experience. But you talk about upside, a guy that's 6'11", he's long, he's mobile, not unskilled either, and we're starting to see that in the New Zealand League. As I said, an opportunity to showcase yourself and your skill set. If he's able to A, be productive, but B, showcase some elite skills that he can parlay into a rotation role in the NBL, that's going to be big. Okay, so his last 2 teams have been Melbourne and Perth, 2 really good programs where he's had limited opportunity. Does he now look for something where he will get more opportunity? Like, if you were advising him, what would you be saying maybe is the next step in his career? His trajectory reminds me a lot of what we saw with AK Gak, and we saw AK go over to Cairns. It might be a similar target for them this season, a guy that's a buy low candidate, a lot of upside, give him the opportunity, and who knows what he's going to be able to do.
Got the Cairns Taipans written all over him for me, doesn't he? Just the skill set and the opportunity, dangle the carrot in front of him, and this is a guy who could really take it and run with it. That'd be a really exciting fit.
Yeah, and a couple of years ago, we were talking about David as a potential NBA prospect. He has those sort of tools and that upside. He just needs a bit of confidence, a bit of rope to be able to express himself on the court and play through some mistakes. And if we see that, we might see some great development over the next 12 months.
Let's hope so. Speaking of development, Owen Foxwell's been, that trajectory has just been rising and rising recently in the NBL. He's gone over to the NZNBL as well, currently leading the competition in assists. So after a great season for South East Melbourne and earning Josh King's trust, he's now parlaying that into another really good off-season campaign.
Yeah, a little bit different for Foxwell because he's someone who kind of already had his breakout. We knew him as this energy guard. He'd come in, do the 1%ers. Last season with South East Melbourne, we saw him progress as a scorer. He was shooting really well, being more aggressive going to the cup. But that assist rate that you mentioned, 9.7, he's leading the league in assists. That is the next step for him and potentially the next step for him to be an NBL starter at some point in time.
Of course, coming off a national championship in the NBL 1 last year with Angus Glover and Eltham, now getting to apply an NBL 1 championship there, getting to apply their trade at that NZ NBL level 2, which is very exciting. 2 intriguing guys plying their trade overseas that we wanted to touch on after we sort of cover off the NZ NBL. And these are 2 bigs because with free agency coming in the NBL, there's going to be names thrown out there. The big market is always really intriguing because it fits such a need for a lot of teams. The first of the names we want to look at today is Joe Luala-Chul, who's playing over in Turkey. He's been putting up some really solid numbers. We haven't seen him in a little while here we didn't see him in the past NBL season. Do you think he could be playing his way potentially into a return?
Yeah, he's playing fantastic basketball. Had 35 this week, 35 and 11, no less. But it's very interesting to watch JLA's stock because someone who is obviously going to get coveted by NBL teams, but the better he plays in a really strong league like Turkey, the more his international market's going to heat up as well.
So he's playing over there for Manisa. He's averaging 15 and 6.5 rebounds a game. He's playing with former breaker Hugo Besson as well. So there's a little bit of that connection. Where do you think he fits? Like, if you think of an NBL club that might go after him, where do you think he fits?
Well, I think a lot of the value with JLA, he's someone that is going to absolutely dominate his matchup. And we know that in the NBL, there aren't always massive bigs. You know, you see some smaller bigs playing small five at times. You throw that ball to JLA every possession, he's going to go get yourself a bucket every single time. So looking at teams, Melbourne United, you know, they have an ageing centre position with Rob Lowe. They had Marcus Lee this past season. I'm sure Melbourne would love him back. And Perth obviously have been rumoured to be in discussions as well, which I think would be a great fit.
And it looked like a gap for both of those teams, potentially the big man spot. So where they go there will be really fascinating. Another name that's out there on the market is plying his trade in Germany, has been for the last 3 seasons in Yanni Wetzel. Of course, he spent 2 years in the NBL, one with South East Melbourne, one with the New Zealand Breakers. A very different type of player, but someone who will also be on the radar.
Yeah, doing fantastic work at Alba Berlin. Alba last in the ladder in EuroLeague, but it is a fantastic level. He's one of the top scorers. And you can see here just his finesse in the post, his ability to score with the hooks. He's a great pick and roll player, someone you'd really want to pair with a high-level point guard, like a Kendrick Davis, for instance.
So he's playing just under 20 minutes a game, 11 and 4.5. He spent the last 3 years here. So this is a system in which he's familiar. His numbers have kept going up every single year. What does he bring to a potential NBL suitor?
Yeah, again, very much a finesse player, someone that can really score on the block or doesn't need the ball necessarily in his hands. He's very efficient in that pick and roll situation. Not someone that's going to guard the rim. He's not long or big like a JLA, but he has great mobility. He can play really aggressively in those coverages.
All right, let's do our best superannuation ad comparison and compare the pair. So you're running a team and you've got a choice. Do I want to go for JLA? Do I want to go for Yanni Wetzel? What are the sort of factors that you're thinking about, how they fit into a roster and the different ways that they contribute to the game?
I think it totally depends on how many other on-ball scorers you have on your roster. If you have a guy, or if you have multiple guys really that are going to need the ball in their hands to score the rock, maybe you go with a Yanni Wetzel, someone you can pair with a high-level point guard and doesn't necessarily need to have the ball but will complement others. JLA, conversely, someone, if you're lacking a bit of firepower, you can bring him on, you can just throw him the ball, he's going to go get possessions on his own.
Yep, so that's it's going to be really interesting to watch, of course. So you can find all of the information in terms of NBL free agency on the NBL website and app, because it's going to be a fascinating watch just to see where everything unfolds. A couple closer to home to finish off. The NBL 1 kicked off last week in the South, the Central and the East, and we had the return of one of the biggest names in Australian basketball, really in Australian sport, over the last decade or so, Erin Phillips, who hasn't played basketball in 9 years, went and did everything there was to do with the Adelaide Crows and Port Adelaide in the AFLW. She returned for the Woodville Warriors on the weekend under coach Vicky Doldy in the NBL 1 Central. And, you never know how much someone like Erin will play in her return. Plays 35.5 minutes in a narrow loss, so she's right back into the swing of things.
An absolute superstar of women's sport across Australia. And just to see her at 39 years old, still doing her thing, the shot still looks sharp. She was carving the defence up with just her IQ and her passing. So awesome to see her playing and coaching as well. Yeah,
absolutely. So a really nice return for Erin Phillips. Slightly outgunned by Liv Levicki, who had 26 and 10 in that game for West Adelaide. The Bearcats playing out at Port Adelaide, but Woodville will be a great team to watch in this NBL 1 Central season, and Erin Phillips is going to be one of the stories to follow in that competition. And then we know that the NBL wrapped up last week. We know the Illawarra Hawks were champions. The celebrations would have rolled on in the gong for quite some time, but not for Todd Blanchfield, who a matter of days after winning his first championship in his 16th NBL season, goes and drops 31 and 15 in the NBL 1 East. Just a lazy sort of roll-out performance from Todd Blanchfield.
Yeah, he's a hooper. He doesn't stop playing, and this was a classic Todd Blanchfield game. We got to see all the threes, still shoots it at such a high level, and that patented floater in the lane as well, the double clutch. I love that shot so much.
I love that. Just inbound the ball, waltz up, oh yeah, bang, stop, pop, and we'll knock down another three. So Todd Blanchfield doing Todd Blanchfield things. I mean, it was such a great story. His involvement in that Illawarra Hawks run, and coached by Matt Flynn. They've got Brad Bellinger there. They've got Kobe McDowell-White there. So they do have a connection to that Hawks team that's won the NBL title, and they could be pretty dangerous in the East.
Yeah, if you squint hard enough, it might be the same Illawarra Hawks team, but Todd's getting a lot more of the ball now. It's really cool to see him in this role, and great to see them just sort of stay at home and be around a squad like that.
And he goes and dominates this competition every single year, so no doubt that'll be the same this year. So much happening around Australian basketball at the moment. That is another edition of Heat Check. Mick, let's hope come Sunday we get that 2 Aussies in the NCAA championship game. That would be something really special.
It'd be amazing. I'm setting my alarm for, what was it, 9 past?
9 past.
Yep.
9 past
On
the
the
hour on Sunday morning. Do not forget. Great work by you as always. Thanks for your company as well here on Heat Check. So much happening. Basketball.com.au for all the action, all the updates on our Aussies overseas. We'll see you next week.